As the roses finish their flowering, the end of another season, isn't it great to know that a new season starts and we get to grow and flower our camellias? Hi, I'm James Wall, and today we're talking camellias, one of the world's most beautiful flowering plants. They come in many shapes and sizes, they're hardy, they've got beautiful glossy leafed foliage, and what I really like about them is in the winter time when a lot of things aren't flowering, camellias will reward you with beautiful flowers. So we're going to look at the two main types of camellias, the different varieties, how to grow them, how to prune them, how to fertilise them, and get the maximum enjoyment from growing them in your garden. So there's actually two main types of camellias we're going to discuss today, Sasanquas and Japonicas. Sasanquas you'll find are smaller leaved, usually a bit smaller flowers, and I think they're a more delicate, thinner sort of grower, so not as dense. And they will take slightly hotter spots in the garden than the other variety, which I've got down here, which is a Japonica. And the Japonicas are sort of larger leaves, larger flowers, need a little bit more protection. So these would go in a shadier area of the garden, and they're different in terms of light, thinner grower, heavier, dense, bushier grower. Sasanqua much more suitable for hedging or topering or espaliering, and probably the Japonica more a feature plant that might take up a whole corner in your garden. One of the other main differences between a Sasanqua and a Japonica, as you can see here, is flowering time. So this one here, you're looking at the Sasanqua's March till May, and this one will go a bit later. So the Japonica, you can see in the tight bud there, is going to be sort of more, July, September. So a big difference in flowering time. So if you've got a mix of the two, you'll get an even longer flowering period of beautiful flowers in your garden. And singles and doubles are available. This here, the poached egg flower, nice looking single. And then of course you've got the double flower of this one here, which is going to give you that more greater impact sort of flowers. One of the amazing things with Sasanqua camellias is all the different uses. You can espalier, you can hedge them, you can leave them as single specimens. And I'll show you a little something here where we see a variety called Yuletide, and look at that, this is exactly the same variety. This one here is just a compact bushy plant, and this one here, it is a little bit older, it's been growing for quite a bit longer, but we can see where we have espaliered this. And you need to do this a little bit differently, of course. When you're pruning, you need to get that flat look, and you need to take control of a plant like this. Then you'd probably prune some of these branches off, and other branches you'd have to take control and tie down into position, and really you must control these plants to get this beautiful espaliered look. And remember as well, a hedge of these, you could put 6 or 7 of these in a row along a fence line and semi-espalier it, or leave it as a bush, and either way get a wonderful hedge effect. And remember, it's a lighter hedge than, say, growing a row of Japonicas. It's quite beautiful and delicate and really adds style to the garden. Something like a Japonica, we'd really only prune this after flowering just to keep it to shape. So, you might not want it to grow up into the gutter, so you take a bit off the top. You might want to keep it a little bit narrower, And that one there, you can really just shape it lightly, don't cut it back hard or it's going to tend to go woody. So your japonicas, you're going to prune a little bit differently. This is one called Avalanche, and it's another one of the Paradise camellias, and this is more columnar. So if you've got a narrow position, this has a beautiful white flower. This one would be sort of a taller, conical, narrow shape. So this one might really fit a little narrow, shadier spot. So that one there, Avalanche in one of the Paradise series. So that one's a great little variety. And then of course we've got our most famous camellia, and this is of course the Setsugekka, a Sasanqua camellia. This is probably our #1 seller. It's a classic plant, used in a lot of those classic gardens where you might see hedging and topiaries and other formal type settings. Then the Setsugekka is the one that's probably the most popular of the whites. So a good solid performer and ever reliable. You can see another one at the front here. This one here has been espaliered and pruned quite a few times, and it's a beautiful, thick, dense covering on that espaliered plant there. So that one there is Paradise Blush, and that one there has that beautiful, touch of pink and white through the flower. And again, a Sasanqua, smaller flower, smaller leaf, and perfect for this type of position and this type of espaliering. Most of the camellias today we've talked about are pink or white or red flowers. There are a few more unusual ones that are yellow flowering, and this is one of the few purple flowering ones, which is really interesting, and it's a very hard name to say. Donna Herzilla de Frates Magalhães is what I think it is, but we'll never really know. Over the years, we've seen some hybrids. Now this is when the breeders have crossed some different varieties and come up with new varieties. And there's a really nice one called Volunteer, which is red and white, very unusual coloured flower, and that's more on your japonica side. This one here is a Sasanqua, and it's called Sweet Jane, and that again would be one of our best sellers. You can see that it's a little bit later to flower than the other Sasanquas, but exquisite, tight pink buds that are just going to open up again to a pinky blush flower. It's a great performer, and Sweet Jane has become a really popular variety. Okay, so that's a few of the different varieties of camellias, and now, we need to think about how we look after them, how we feed them. Probably every couple of months, a good dose of fertiliser will be highly beneficial. We recommend Harry's. It's a formula specifically made for growing camellias. Probably best to start feeding in sort of coming out of winter into early spring, say September, and every 8 weeks or so, give them a bit of a feed right up to sort of late autumn, where you'd probably not have to feed them for a couple of months over winter, and then start your cycle again back in early September. And what I like about this Harry's fertiliser, Harry was a famous nurseryman who ran a little retail nursery in East Malvern for many, many years. Unfortunately, Harry's no longer with us, but he has come up with left behind a fertiliser that he's come up with some 20 years ago, specifically formulated for camellias. And the reason we need a specific formulation is that camellias prefer a slightly acidic soil. So that's a lower pH. So if we think about things like lime, which push the pH up, we never really want to put lime around our camellias. Mushroom compost is another one, quite an alkaline fertiliser. We never really want to use mushroom compost. But something like the Harry's is specifically designed for that slightly more acid soil that you'll find the camellias love. That's just perfect for growing azaleas, camellias and rhododendrons. So you can get a few problems with camellias, mainly insects like scales, mites, even aphids, but these are very easily controlled. You've got your chemical applications which get inside the plant. You've got another one, Maverick, which is also quite a strong chemical you could use on them, or you could go all natural with the Natrasoap, and that will knock a lot of those pests off. And if they persist, try applying some eco oil, as this is a sticky sort of substance that the insects really won't like, and they'll be less likely to want to live on those plants. But you know, compared to roses, camellias are probably a lot easier, and you have a lot less dramas, and they're just as rewarding. If you'd like to see more varieties, we've got plenty on display, and I can introduce you to Caroline.